Like if somebody says, why would I want to do CrossFit, or why do I want to be a part of Leaf? And I want to say, this is why. This is what we're going to do. We're going to build into your life in this way. Our people at Leaf are going to be fortified. And when I say fortified, this work, you're going to be prepared for anything, anytime, and you're going to be grateful to the obstacle for the opportunity, right? To see that thing in front of you was placed there because you are strong enough to be able to move it. I'm K.Y.L.E, and this is the Know Your Leading Edge podcast. Well, welcome back to this episode of Know Your Leading Edge podcast. I'm your host, K.Y.L.E. Looking forward to a conversation with none other than Mr. Nathan Barry. So, going to get really excited about this particular version of our podcast. Nathan is a phenomenal athlete and twice as good a human in that regard. And Nathan's been a huge part of the building of Leaf Gym in so many ways that he's not even maybe aware of. But I'm grateful for your time today, Nathan. Super excited to have a conversation with you, and just wanted to thank you for taking the time.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah,
Happy
man.
to be here.
Yeah, dude. So, Nathan and I, before we got started here, we're sort of riffing about how this is a new adventure for both of us. Nathan's never been on a podcast, and frankly, I'm only learning to host a podcast. So should be a good adventure, and we hope you sit back and really enjoy some of the time. So Nathan is the principal owner of After Hours Plumbing and Heating Incorporated, and that started January 21. But Nathan, tell me a little bit about your professional life, maybe just sort of some of the how you arrived at After Hours, and what brings you to your place in the profession today.
Okay. So like anything, there's quite a backstory to get there.
Yeah.
I grew up in a small town called Electric City, Washington.
Okay.
And
how small is that?
I believe a few thousand people.
Okay.
It's pretty small.
Sure.
Wenatchee was kind of like the next biggest town. So when I graduated high school, I moved out to Wenatchee. Cool. When I was 21, I started working at a company called Inland Pipe and Supply, working in the warehouse and driving the truck and delivering plumbing products and doing that kind of stuff. Over time, I worked my way into a management role there, selling to plumbing contractors and industrial contractors. The plumbing community is pretty small here in Wenatchee. There's just not that many plumbing companies out there. So over time, you kind of develop close relationships with a lot of the folks in town doing business. The owners of After Hours Plumbing, the previous owners, were at a point where they were ready to retire.
Yep.
And I was at a point where I was ready to do something different, and they were extremely generous with me and gave us an opportunity to purchase this business. And that was January of 21.
Dude, what was the spark? Why did you, how do you go from being the dude in the warehouse driving the truck and doing the things and sales and all those things? Because I've worked in that place too. So I worked in electrical supply and all these places. I remember being the warehouse guy working for ridiculous hourly wages. What on earth happens to a dude who goes from I'm going to own this place, or I'm going to buy this thing, from the guy who's driving the truck? What was the spark there?
So I started working at Inland Pipe and Supply in 2008.
Yeah.
And I think we're all pretty aware what happened in 2008.
Sure.
The housing market fell apart.
Yeah.
The manager that hired me ended up quitting and going to do something else.
Yeah.
And so we had this interim time, and I want to say it was a year and a half or so, where it was a rudderless ship.
Got
we
it.
had no leadership there.
Yep.
And I started kind of through necessity, really trying to learn more facets of the business, more of the operations, and with kind of the hopes that I would get an opportunity at the leadership position. And I wasn't. Looking back, I wasn't ready, but I did make it known that I was interested in that path.
Yeah.
The gentleman they hired, great guy, Didn't end up being the right fit, but he was there just long enough for me to develop the skills needed to be ready. So after he left, I ended up getting an opportunity to lead that business, and did that for, I think, 14 years.
Wow.
11 years. Excuse me, 11 years.
Yeah.
11
I was
years,
just you've probably seen my head. I was doing math there. My eyeballs were doing. I was like, okay, wait, that would be right now. Okay, 11 years. 11 years you were the manager there?
Yes.
Wow. Fantastic. So you're managing the business. What's now the next jump, right? So how does that come about?
So I got to a place, I'm very fortunate to have been able to put people around myself that were very capable. Yeah. And I found myself in a position where the business honestly didn't really need me. They didn't need me there. We had a really strong culture. My teammates really knew what to do on an operational basis to keep things running.
Yeah.
I was ready for the next thing. I felt like me being there was holding back other people from being able to move beyond where they were, and also I was bored. I needed more.
Got it.
Yeah. So the timing was just perfect.
Dude, that's so good. All right. Well, so now that we've gotten to this point professionally, kind of in this place, thriving business, you've added some other segments of new business to that since you took over. So we'll kind of come back to that. But let's jump back in. So you get to represent a couple of three of the coolest people that I know. Your wife and partner there, Tori, and your son Emmett, and your daughter Isabel. And just by looking at your face, I know how much that impacts you just hearing their name. So tell me a little bit about your family.
Yeah, so Tori and I just celebrated our 10-year anniversary this year, which was awesome. Best partner I could have hoped for. Oh. Emmett is 9 years old, and Isabel is 6. And they're both very active kids, and my biased opinion, really, really great kids.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I'm biased too. I mean, I think they're great kids. No, what's really cool is we get a chance to work with all of them, right? Like for me, one of the cool parts of knowing when I think about the anchor, the bricks of this place, right? This place is built on a whole pile of berries. Right, we got our Nathans and our Tori and our Emmett and our Isabel, and I saw Isabel yesterday when I was dropping our children off at gymnastics, and anytime she sees me in a context that doesn't make sense to her, she's like super confused and then elated, right? So I was just in the car, and Emmett noticed me, and so I was like, "Hey, Kyle's already there." And Isabel turned around, and I just thought, this is such a cool moment for me. Like, I wonder when Isabel will totally not think I'm as cool as I am, right? Because I'll be super sad that day. Because right now she makes me feel like a rock star every time I see her. And it's possible that she does that probably to everyone, but she makes me feel like a rock star. So she's a wonderful soul in the world. Anyway, I love your family so much. Tori's grown immensely in terms of what she does, and just watching her confidence grow and the things that she can do is really, really wonderful. And then I get a chance to work with Emmett, and yesterday he's being a turkey, trying to get this guy into a hollow body position, and he was like instead rolling the mat up and like laying his head down. And I thought, okay, I could play this, but you know what, I know his father, and I'm like, okay, all right, because of this little charade you're pulling right now, you're going to get bonus time here. So I made him do extra hollow body, which he wasn't terribly fond of. But he knows. And I think that for me, part of what's really important about what we do at this gym is that we're trying to encircle families and encircle the people that come into our building and make them a part of our tribe. And in this tribe, it's not just Nathan's job to raise his children. It's Nathan's job, and it's everyone else to understand the values that Nathan brings to his family and continue to help support those kinds of things, right? And so we're building, hopefully, inside of these walls, a community that can be mobile and go out into the community and into the world and instill some great values and those types of things. So it's pretty cool to get a chance to work with your children and your wife, and frankly, you, honestly.
Well, we all benefit greatly from being here and from your influence. So.
Thanks, dude. I really appreciate that. It's, yeah. So tell us about young Nathan. All right. So somehow you arrived at what I can, so let me tell you about yourself. When I think of the best people that we serve, I think of you first. When I consider decisions that I think will impact our business, I think of you first. There's a reason for that. I'm not even sure I can put my finger on what those are, right? But I've just known it from probably the first moment that I watched you work, which was ages ago, and contexts are certainly different. But you find something in someone that you really admire, and you should know that I really admire you. And I don't know a ton about your past, so I'm really excited to learn about what has built you into the sort of person that I would hang my business on without even knowing. So tell me a little bit about young Nathan.
So again, I grew up in Electric City, Washington, small town. It was the kind of town where, like, you know everybody. As a young kid, I was super into BMX bikes, skateboarding, like all of dirt bikes was a huge part of growing up. So those were kind of the sports that I was really into growing up.
Yeah.
It was the kind of neighborhood where there'd be a pack of kids rolling around together, back when kids were on bikes roaming the neighborhood and causing trouble and stuff like that. So those kind of sports really spoke to me growing up. And yeah, went to school at graduated through Lake Roosevelt High School, and yeah.
How did you become such a principled dude?
So I wasn't always that way.
That's okay. I don't think anybody was. If we flip these microphones around, you'd be probably pretty damn surprised to learn about all the things that make me who I am. So
sure.
How did you become?
So at my previous work, there was a program called the Total Training Network.
Yeah.
And let me back up a little bit. So I took some not so great paths in high school, and was a much different person than I am now, which is common for most people, right?
Yeah, dude.
I found this program through my previous work. There was some old dusty CDs sitting on a shelf somewhere.
Okay.
And I was upset because when I didn't get the opportunity to lead that business. I was pretty upset about that.
I'll bet.
And so my thought process was, well, I need to do what I can to show that I'm the kind of person that could do this job.
Yeah.
Found these old dusty CDs, the Total Training Network, and asked the dude that they hired if I could bring them home and check them out. And I came across a guy by the name of Brian Tracy.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of
I do know Brian
Tracy.
Tracy, sure.
But it was the first time that I'd really listened to somebody who, in really unapologetic terms, said that you're responsible for exactly where you're at right now.
Okay.
And I had never really thought about, I guess I'd never really thought about that or thought about the world like that you really are the sum of all the decisions that you've made up into the point in time that you're at right now. And I just at first was like put off and didn't really like that message.
Yeah.
But the more that I thought about it, the more I realized it gave me control of who I am, of the direction that I'm going. It gave me a sense of control. And I really dove into, I just really went deep into listening to his specific content.
Yeah.
And of course, when you do that, you find all kinds of other avenues to go down as well.
Yeah. Let me pause you right there. You don't just find those things. Like what I see, the thread that's coming from you, right? Like this major disappointment happens for you.
Yeah.
Most people pack that thing up. I'm just not meant to be that. They said no, right?
Sure.
Instead, you go finding some dusty CDs. Probably didn't even have a damn CD player at that point. I don't know what year this is. You find a stack of CDs and start working. And then you listen to that, and then you don't like the message that you're hearing. So then you keep going down that path. Like, that's different, right? Can you see that that's different about you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see that.
So let's continue forward with what we're saying there. But like, there's something inside you. So how do you keep driving towards stuff that's making you uncomfortable? And man, now down a pathway that you're like, holy smokes, I don't really like that, but let's keep doing this.
I think the getting addicted to the growth is really, I like things that change the way that I think about the world. I like hearing ideas that are counter to what I believe. Okay. And I like the opportunity, like, to change and adapt my philosophies on life as I go through it in real time. So I think that's why that spoke to me so much.
Awesome. You know, change, I've heard it said from a lot of people, so I can't really attribute it there, but Mike Gervais is one person that I hear say it a lot. I don't know if you listen to his podcast, Finding Mastery. The idea that pain is the force that really requires us to change, right? That through pain is where we actually become, right? And without it, no one likes encountering it, but without it, there's no impetus to change, and so we just stay. And it's clear, like, along the path, you've experienced some of those pieces that brings you here today. It's so cool. Sure. So, I mean, it dovetails beautifully into what we're going to talk about next, which is why CrossFit. Because there is definitely day-to-day pain, if you will, right? I mean, pain is a degree, and really you can, in this case, that comes by way of your own doing. But why CrossFit? Why is that a big part of your life?
So, for a lot of reasons, the thing that really drew me to it initially is that there are so many skills to work towards and master, and there's no destination. It's all about making incremental improvements over time and finding a way to enjoy that process. And I like to say, instead of pain, it's discomfort, because discomfort is different than pain.
For sure.
And you get hooked on that uncomfortable feeling. Uncomfortable learning new movements, uncomfortable physically because you're exerting a lot of effort. But also the ability to look back at where you were and see that over time, I am making progress. I am making improvements. Yeah. And then you combine that with the community aspect, which is a huge part of why I'm here. And it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. What has been great about your experience here at Leaf? You know, you've been doing all kinds of exercise, you've been doing all kinds of CrossFit in other places. You and I have kind of done stuff. We all had to do stuff weird places during COVID. You were in your garage. Sure. Like, what makes this place unique?
Yeah. So to tell that, I need to go back a little bit. So my experience with CrossFit, I started CrossFit just about 3 years ago.
Okay.
Was not a member of an affiliate, had really no direction other than YouTube on, like, trying to learn how to do things. So I was trying to learn how to do CrossFit movements and stuff in an open gym at another gym in town, and I really enjoyed it. That was fun. Did that all the way up until COVID happened, and fortunately, as as I got deeper into this sport, I started accumulating gear. And when when COVID did happen, I was one of the super fortunate people to have a complete garage gym full of everything that I needed to continue training. And that was good. And I was fine with that. I was happy with it.
Yeah.
Before COVID happened, I had met you.
Yeah.
And prior to that, I hadn't had the opportunity to talk with somebody or to get feedback from somebody who really had a vast knowledge of CrossFit, able to give me feedback on how to improve things. And I was super thankful for that, and that stuck with me. And yeah, so when I found out that you were opening this gym, it just made sense to me to come here and get under your coaching and continue to make progress.
Awesome. Well, that you have, honestly, I mean, it's super impressive to me, the track of development. So the curse of good coaching, if you're an athlete in your own mind and you don't realize how old you're getting, the curse of being a coach is that if you're doing a good job, your athletes certainly crest you very rapidly. And so actually I remember a conversation, we were talking about what your goals were going to be. You know, we were just talking strictly performance goals. And you said, what are your goals? And I basically said, like, my goals are just for you to get your goals. Like, that's all I'm aiming for. And I can't tell you that there's anything more true about that. You know, I love watching you guys go for it. It pushes me, and I still get to train a little bit. I mean, if you want, you hear this a lot from gym owners. Like, if you want to figure out how to lose your fitness super fast, like, buy a gym, and you'll find a lot of ways to spend your time other than actually working out. But for me, being in this gym and coaching is easily the most natural thing I do right now. As we're getting off the ground, I'm working hours, upon hours. You know, my day starts at 4 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes it doesn't end until 8 or 8:30 at night. And that sounds really tough. And honestly, there's work in it. There's effort in it. But when I'm on the floor and when I'm with a person, whether it's your son at 6:30 at night or his father at 5 in the morning or your wife at noon, right? It doesn't matter. Like, I love to give to people whatever it is that I have that allows them to get on their path, right? Like, that's it. So it is exhausting. What you find when you build a community like the one we're trying to build here for me is you love people so deeply that you better find a way to open your capacity doors up, because, man, like, I'd spend all my wife would tell you this too. I love you, Trina. That I'll just give as much as I can all day. You know, I've said to a lot of people who come in these doors who maybe look at this and they're like, "Oh, it's too expensive." And I say, "Listen, I totally get it. You should know that if you handed me $1 million check today, I'd show up tomorrow at 4 o'clock in the morning and I would be here to train you. I'm not here for the money. It costs money to run a business. It costs, I've got 2 children who want to have their own aspirations in life. And so we try to provide those things. I'd love one day for my wife to be able to curtail her profession so she can really enjoy some things. But man, I would show up every day to coach you. And hopefully you and everybody else knows that and feel that. So it's long days right now as we're building and we're learning about who we're going to be as a gym. But I never turn around and go, this isn't a good decision, or that this isn't exactly what I was meant to be doing. So I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful for the chance to get to coach you and for you to be a part of our community. So
it's all of that is very evident spending any time around you, and that's why I'm here. The time that we've spent together, training together at a previous gym, and having the opportunity to have been coached by you. For one, I know, watching you interact with people, that you care genuinely about everybody who walks through the door, and that's obvious. I've seen you stop in the middle of your workout to help somebody else with something that they needed, and I don't think that's very common. that people are willing to put their own personal needs aside like that, to look out for or to help somebody who's doing the same, doing the same workout that they are. I've seen you greet everybody who walks through the door. That's why I'm here. And the progress that you've helped me make, and in the short time that we've trained together and that you've coached me, is exponential over the time that I spent working out by myself in my garage. I can't even compare those two spaces of time.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I'm here, man. So tell us a story you're proud of. What's your proudest moment, maybe in, out of the gym, or maybe what your fitness has actually given to you here?
I think what I'm most proud of is just the way that I'm living right now.
Yeah.
I'm thankful that I've had the ability to decide what kind of person I want to be, and to discipline myself to do that. So it's an ongoing story.
That's so good, man. That's so good. You said this earlier. We were talking about this, this notion of like progress, and that in CrossFit or in life, you never arrive. So I'll give you a quote that I'll have on my wall here soon. It's hanging on my board at home right now. It's a book from a quote from a book called The Leadership Moment. And it's about the first female mountaineer who was leading an expedition. And I'm going to struggle to remember her name, but I'll see if I can't get that back in another podcast. Anyway, she was mountaineering and guiding a whole group of women up Annapurna, which was like an unheard of thing for these women mountaineers to be doing this, and so it was a really groundbreaking thing that she was doing. But this notion that she left in her story, I thought was really cool, and it was this idea that you never summit a mountain, right? That you get the opportunity to stand on the summit for a moment, and then the wind blows your feet away. And the other thing, and it's as though you were never there, right? And I had a realization personally when I was doing a mountaineering expedition that the one thing that's really cool about mountaineering that's maybe different than everything else is you get this wonderful perspective when you stand on top of a mountain. And what's the one thing do you know what you can see when you're on top of a mountain really clearly?
Lots of other mountains.
A whole bunch of other mountains that you've never climbed, right? Yeah. And you look around and you go, yep, I'm here, but this don't mean much. Yeah. And so another quote that runs with me a lot is, today doesn't care what you did yesterday.
Right.
Right. And so I keep working at that. What do you think about that? Riff on those quotes and those thoughts.
Yeah. So that's, I think, just life in general is part of the human condition, is that we tend to think that as soon as I have this, then I'll be happy. Yeah. As soon as I can do this, then I'll be happy, whether it's in the fitness context or just life in general. And what you were saying and what that person noticed is that you never actually arrive. There is no destination. There's a destination off in the distant horizon, but what's most important is that you find a way to enjoy the path. And find people who'll help you along the way, that recognize potential in you and can see where you're trying to go and help you get there.
Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit about that off before. What do you think, you're talking about those people, what do you think makes a great coach? What makes a great coach?
Yeah, so I think on that, an individual who has the ability to see potential in you that you may not see for yourself, and somebody who has the skills to get you where you want to go, and also the care to make sure that you're on the right path.
Yeah,
that's what I look for.
Yeah, I think that coaching, coaching has been a passion of mine since I'm 4 years old. Oddly enough, right? And I think we've talked about this before, so listeners should get a little insight into my all the time conversation. But when my mother had a daycare in our home, and so we had, every morning I get woken up just like little kids slapping me in the face, this kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, whatever, So we had kids all the time. And when I was 5 or 6 years old, is the earliest I can remember. I love football. So we would collect up. We had these random football helmets and like shoulder pads that you would like. I don't even know where they came from, but we would like collect equipment up from anybody who had stuff in the neighborhood. And then we'd just like have football camp in my backyard, right? And I was coaching this. And then football would spin into basketball, and the heroes of basketball when I was a kid, Michael Jordan and Larry Bird and Dominique Wilkins and these guys. Then we would turn into basketball camp. And so pretty soon we're firing basketballs around, and my dad, who I love dearly, he put a basketball hoop in the backyard and just really let us chase our sports dreams, And so then it became basketball camp, and then baseball came, and then little kids. I think I can remember one time this little kid that I was teaching how to throw and catch, and I feel so bad, but we're throwing regular hard balls. He doesn't even know how to catch us. Dome. We're just like take a hard ball right at the dome, and you're just like, dude, I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, I felt really terrible, but we learned along the pathway there. But all that was born of a deep desire to coach. Right? Even at the threads of my life where I've been, a bad seed in some people's eyes. I've always loved to be able to positively impact other people, and what you're talking about. And I think it was somewhat born into me, but I've also had the benefit of having great coaches and realizing great coaches. So let me talk about some of my great coaches. So I had my first coach was my father, right? Who worked all day, did all kinds of things, and still was the coach of each one of our soccer teams, our baseball teams, or whatever, And then as a kid, you don't even realize what that is, right? You're just like, oh, of course, my dad is the coach and whatever, And then at some point, you graduate to the point where you're like kind of embarrassed of your parents and you want to get away from them. And let me tell you, now I'm 44 now. Like as I look back at that, dude. Right now, like, can you imagine, like, did you do some coaching with your kids? Have you done some of that?
Not on a team level, no.
Dude, this is such you imagine getting to the end of your workday and you're like, all right, go take care of 15 of these little 9-year-olds and somehow craft them into something. This is like saintly work, people. Saintly work.
I agree.
And, my father did that. And then, as I started to grow, I started to show promise, and my dad realized sort of maybe the limitations of where he had us at, and so he let me go into these more advanced programs. And so I got to witness newer and newer coaches of some of, a varying degree of expertise, but the level started to go up. But then I had fantastic coaches, and mostly as I look back, it was the depth of their interest and care in who I was as a person meant more than, I don't really remember a ton of technical things that I was given from those men. So Kevin Peterson was my position coach for football at Pasco High School. Sean Esterhazen was my soccer coach, and these two men in particular became the new thread of what my father had instilled in me. And these men deeply cared about the humans that they were working with. And they were funny, and they were relatable, and they showed up every day, and they knew when you didn't show up every day, and they called you on it, and they challenged you, and they forgave you when you came up short, and they screamed with you, and they cried with you, and they did all those things. And I take that magic forward, because we've also had coaches that haven't done that, sure, that have just shown up and mailed it in, or they were just a great technical coach and you got a couple things and you probably wouldn't ever call that person to talk to them at all anymore. Yeah. And then you have transformational people in your life that you just go, man, if I had one more moment of that. I mean, in some degree, one of the reasons that I wanted to do this podcast was because I love to coach and teach. And the young men that I've worked with in my past, young ladies I've worked with in my past too, I love them still. But I haven't been able to impart any of the things that I've learned since I've been a part of their lives, because now they're busy with sons, daughters, sure, jobs, these kind of things. And so I thought, this is a way that I could stand in front of them again and be able to say, these are the things that I'm learning. This is how I'm seeing the world. If you find value in it, I'd love for you to be able to get access to the things that I'm learning. And so it's opened up a new avenue for me to speak to the hearts of people that I really deeply care about, and bring on and introduce the world to people like you, and say, there are awesome people in the world, and you should know this guy. So anyway, it's a little bit of a roundabout thing, but what makes a great coach is all of those things. And you do have to have technical pieces in my mind, but they just never land if they're not given the same platform, right, for care.
Right.
Yeah.
Trust is the key component there. I don't think anything can happen coaching wise until that level of trust is built, and people won't trust you if they get a feeling that you don't really care about them.
Yeah.
So I feel like you're great at building trust, and because you genuinely care.
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt about that. That's certainly the case. I mean, I couldn't love doing what I'm doing more. What about, so like you're a stud. We've certainly accomplished that in this conversation. What do you struggle with, dude? What's not? I don't see a lot of your struggle, but you're a guarded dude in some sense, right? So tell me what you struggle with.
So, as far as CrossFit goes,
both life and CrossFit. You're not getting off the hook with just talking about what you struggle with in the gym. I want to know what you're struggling with. What's tough for you?
I think, in life in general, the struggle for me currently as a parent is making sure, I think it's making sure that I'm putting enough of my time in the right places, right? There's so many different directions that we can get pulled into.
Yeah, man.
And so really it comes down to, relationships and making sure that I'm putting enough time into my relationship with my son and daughter and my wife. That's probably the biggest struggle. And again, that's one that you never arrive at, right? You're always working towards that, but having that at the forefront of my mind and to base my decisions upon that, I think that's the biggest struggle. As far as the gym goes,
what are you struggling on in the gym?
So my history as an athlete, so I lived a pretty unhealthy lifestyle up until I was about 24.
What do you mean unhealthy? You don't have to go far deep into the weeds, but what are we talking about here?
So I grew up doing a lot of things that are not
so guarded. Don't worry. We're not going to name these various substances or choices, but just basically maybe things we shouldn't be putting into our bodies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we could say that right up, until I made some different decisions when I turned 24.
Yeah.
And
was there a seminal moment why that happened?
Nothing that stands out to me. I feel like it was maybe it was just the accumulation of the things that I'd been, in my early 20s that I had been learning and trying to work towards, and realizing that I am responsible and I need to make some changes with what I'm doing recreationally. So
was Tori in your life at the time? Were you guys together?
Yes.
How did that all come about?
Yeah. So I think she was probably a big influence in me making some improvements as well.
That's great.
So I found really Tori introduced me to running, and so that was something that I had gotten into. Had never been a runner. It was totally new. Had habits that impacted my ability to do that. But I found that, and we started doing that together, and I really found a lot of joy in running, going out and like longer distance running.
Yeah.
And kind of just dove pretty deep down the running. I wasn't a great runner by any means, but I enjoyed doing it, and I would spend quite a bit of time out running. Then I guess so. In the effort to improve my running, I joined a gym, thinking I can do some cross training and I'll get better at running.
Sure.
Had never belonged to a gym. Had never touched a barbell that I can recall.
Dude, you're such a unicorn that you're just like, I love that you just like, I'm just going to do this thing. Okay, that makes I'm going to do that thing. Like, it's so good. Anyway, keep going.
So the point of all of this is that I was never a very powerful, strong athlete.
Okay.
That is where my biggest struggles are in CrossFit and in this sport. I've had to work super hard to get to where I'm at now, and I've got a long way to go to get where I'd like to be.
Where are you going to go? What do you mean? You never get there. We already established that. Right. You got a long way to go to get where? You're already there.
Yeah.
You're doing great. Anyway, sorry, I keep derailing.
No,
keep going, buddy.
That's fine. So really strength and power. Like endurance wise, I'm I'm okay. I've had to work really hard at the strength and the power movements. So that's my focal point right now.
Dude, you're well on your way to who knows where, but it's pretty awesome to watch you keep taking steps, man. The clear thing is like every time I see you, I just watch you and I can see the threads of time, and I'm just like, dude, like just this morning I was watching you row and I'm like, this dude looks like a beast, right? Like can you imagine for a moment the way that everyone else in your life likely sees you as like an absolute pillar of fitness. And then if you were to turn the mirror on yourself and you're like, oh, I've got this hole, I've got that hole. Everyone else around you is like, I would die to look in the way and work in the way that you do. So everything is about perspective, right? And being, you're as genuinely kind a person as I think I've met in my life. And I think that one pearl I might drop to you is to find a way to be that kind to yourself, right? To be able to see that same thing in yourself. You know it about yourself, but sometimes it can be hard to convince you, and just be like, no, I really am doing it. Because, dude, from everybody else's perspective, you are. So,
thank you, Kyle.
Yeah, dude. So, we already talked a little bit about great coaching. We talked about that. What does the future look like for you in this sport, in this gym, and what are you aspiring to professionally? Where are you heading, man? What's the future look like?
So as far as sport goes, my objective right now. So right now I'm 37. Yep. I'm in the first group of the masters athletes. Yeah. I like that term, masters.
Yeah, dude. We're doing something right. We're mastering something. Yeah.
What I'm training for right now is when I roll over into the age of 40, and I'm kind of at the younger bracket of that next age group. So I would like to be competitive. What exactly that means, I don't think I'll know until I get there. Okay. But I would like to be in the upper percentages of that age group. Yeah. So working towards that right now, as far as the sport goes, as far as CrossFit and fitness go. As far as professionally, right now, we got a lot of things going on in the plumbing world.
There's a lot of things going on in the plumbing world. Is the world of plumbing changing so drastically? Are we
really
with
our
toilet
business,
designs? Okay. All right.
We've been on a pretty steady growth trajectory, and it's hard to know. It's hard to project too too far out, because unexpected things happen, right? COVID doesn't care about your 5-year plan. There's all kinds of things that happen along the way that influence the direction that you go. So I feel like being open to opportunities that come along is the most important thing. And in our world, in our business, those opportunities are in the form of people, really. The right person can join your team with an ability that could add a whole new direction for your business, or a whole new facet of your business that you couldn't plan for necessarily. So right now we're trying to get more efficient in what we're doing, and to continue to grow organically that way.
Cool. Tell me, so one thing that I wanted to talk to you about today, I mean, we're both going through this, me on certainly a different level than you. You've been in this for a while now, which is cool. And I am just a partner with my wife in starting a business, and what the stresses of that bring, what the freedoms of that bring. What can you tell our listeners, and what can you tell me? What advice do you have for a guy who's trying to make a business go? What have you learned? What do you know?
That's a really good question. I mean, for me, it's surrounding myself with people who are who are good at things that I'm not necessarily very good at. I have found over time that there's really a small group of things that I do well, okay, and there's a whole lot of things that are outside of my wheelhouse. Okay. And so recognizing what those are and placing people in positions to handle those things and giving them the freedom to operate, would be I guess that's probably my main.
That's it. It's interesting you say that. So I was looking up on your, let's see here. See if I can open that up here. I was looking at your LinkedIn today.
Oh,
I don't know if
regular. I'm not very active on
So, yeah, not very active, but you get a sense of what people like when you look through their likes on LinkedIn.
Oh, okay.
So I'll just give you a couple of these things. So leaders become great not because of their power, but because of their ability to empower others. That was a post you liked.
Yeah.
Great leaders believe they work for their team. Average leaders believe their team works for them. And dream big, start small, but most of all start. So these were 3 screenshots that I saw I took from your account this morning. So I'm guessing there's a reason you like them. Do you still believe them? Who knows when you actually like those things? And absolutely. That sounds like what you're talking about. So you've built a team there in your building. Tell me about how you've gone about empowering them, and why that we concept sounds so. Why is it so impactful, dude? I got to do that same thing. Everybody's got to do that same thing. How have you done it well?
So I don't always do it well.
Yeah.
But in our business specifically, it's critical. I'm not a plumber. I have to rely upon the expertise of other people to get things done.
Got it.
So when I started this business, when we purchased this business, it was heavily revolving around the previous owners, and they did an excellent job, built a great reputation, did things really well. I knew that model wasn't going to work for me. It needed to, after hours plumbing needed to be the thing, and the team needed to be the focal point, not myself. Yeah. There's a book by Ryan Holiday called "The Obstacle Is the Way," right? Yeah. And it's that is the obstacle, is that I can't do the work. But that's so I have to find how to get things done through other people.
Yeah.
And doing it in a way that's beneficial to them, it's beneficial to the business, and that works really well for our customers.
That's great.
I feel fortunate just to be there. To be honest with you, I'm
sure. I'm guessing that they tell you. I mean, I don't know a ton of your employees, but the ones that I do can't possibly speak any more highly of you.
That's nice.
I mean, yeah. He's just Kevin, who we're talking about here, he's just like, man, I asked him, what's it like to work for Neil? Oh, man, night and day, man. It's just crazy how good it is. I can't even imagine, how life was so much different with Nathan not in the lead of this thing. It just feels fantastic.
Awesome.
So, well, you mentioned something there, and I'm really building hard toward building a culture here in our business about values in action. My great friend, who I hope to have on this podcast once, because the knowledge and wisdom this dude's going to drop is going to be out of this world. His name is Bruce Brown. He lives over on the west side, but Bruce taught me a long time ago about what values in action really look like. And I'm trying to think about what we're trying to build in terms of the people inside of the walls of what we're doing here at Leaf. And so I thought I would share this because a couple of the things that we've talked about are going to end up coming out in these values. So I've been really thinking deeply about who we want. Like if somebody says, why would I want to do CrossFit, or why do I want to be a part of Leaf? And I want to say, this is why. This is what we're going to do. We're going to build into your life in this way. Our people at Leaf are going to be fortified. And when I say fortified, this work, you're going to be prepared for anything, anytime, and you're going to be grateful to the obstacle for the opportunity, right? To see that thing in front of you was placed there because you are strong enough to be able to move it, right? No one else has that. And that's what we wake up for, right? When people see me in my neighborhood, when during COVID, or even not even pre-COVID, for crying out loud, I was doing all this crap in my neighborhood. And we have a big yoke, right? You've seen the yoke. Mm-hmm. And put the yoke on my back, and we walk this thing up and down the street in my neighborhood. My neighbor comes out. So what? He said, "What are you walking your bed frame around for?" And I gave him a good laugh, and we just kept moving, right? And then, what are you training for? People say. And that's the answer, right? This value in action is this fortification, this idea that if you needed anything, I'm ready, right? And the moment you say, I don't think we can do that, I'd say, nope, I wake up every day at 4 o'clock in the morning so I can be prepared for this very moment, and now I'm going to seize it, right? And that's why we do what we do here. Absolutely. That's why we do what we do in CrossFit, and that's why we do that right here in this building with Leaf. We build people who are resolute, right? So unwavering, especially under pressure. You get to find out about people's character. You get to find out about who they really are when you dial down pressure, right? This last year has been a huge struggle for me personally, professionally, in so many ways. I've had to stare at myself and wonder. I've cried more in this year than I have in any previous 10 years of my life because I've had to stand against what I felt like was really immense pressure and pain. Strong enough to stare into the eye of the storm and still never yield, to believe what you believe and just keep standing, right? And I'm not special in any way. I'm no different than any other person that puts shoes on and socks on every day. But when we come into these walls, we build resolute people who believe that they can be unwavering because they have proof of it. Sure. This morning in your 4th out of 5 row intervals, you get to decide whether or not you're resolute enough to just give in, right? Because nobody's going to care if you drop off 5 seconds. I'm going to notice, so maybe you should care about that. Maybe you shouldn't, but here's the point. You just kept pulling. Right? You just kept going. And the last one that we already talked about is being connected, right? And when I say connected, I mean that in the most communal way, right? The strength of the tribe is in our connection. I love that inside of these walls of this gym that most people care more about someone else's PR than their own, right? Steph, who just finally got a bar muscle up after working for that thing for 5 years, right? Like I couldn't have, every time I thought of her for 2 or 3 days, like all I could do was smile, right? Yeah. And thinking about what that feels like when you finally get somewhere. And I think that people hold you in high enough regard to care deeply about what you're accomplishing, right? The world can either be scarce or it can be abundant.
Absolutely.
Right? And I really hope that people recognize the strength and the connection of who we are here is what makes this thing special. I want them to come in here and experience. I mean, when I talk about if I had my goals and dreams come true with this gym, right? Like, and I've shared some of this with you at times, right? Like I would love to celebrate your greatest accomplishments in this gym. I would love to cry on the day that you need somebody to cry with you. I would love to watch your children grow and graduate and chase their dreams and know that I was a small part of that we were a small part of that. To watch your wife and your partnership thrive, your business grow, like. And if everybody in this place seemed to care that deeply about one another, it can't help but find its way out into a world that needs that.
Yeah.
You can't not have that sort of life impact happening in your own circle and not have that touch the other circles of people you'll touch that I'll never know.
Sure.
And so that's my hope. That's the dream that I have in this building, and it's possible because of people like you. So
I think you're on a good path.
Thanks, man.
Really good path.
Well, with that, I'm so grateful to you, Nathan. I can't believe how lucky we are to have you and your family in here. I'm thankful for the time we got to spend together, and I'll cherish the conversation as long as it's in existence, frankly. So building something is scary. Building something that is new, you never know how that's going to be judged. But I'm grateful to have walked out onto an uncomfortable path with you today. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Kyle.
Yeah, man, it's been fantastic. So for those of you who'd like to learn a little bit more about what we do here at Leaf, please feel free to visit our website, leafgym.com, leafgym.com. This podcast is sponsored happily by O2, the official recovery drink of the CrossFit Games. And owner Dave K.Y.L.E and his team are doing a great job, and we're so excited to be a part of their team. I couldn't be more grateful to have this opportunity to talk to you. And if you enjoyed the podcast, if you enjoyed the content, please go out, subscribe to it, share it out with some of your friends, and let's let them get to know a fantastic human in Nathan, and let's keep sharing this good word out into the world. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Know Your Leading Edge podcast with your host, K.Y.L.E. For more information or to check us out on the web, please visit leafgym.com. Learn character from the tree, values from the roots, and change from the leaf.